Hey, Horse Center fans, Matt and I are back with another exciting edition of the show. Matt, we're talking $1 million races this week.
We are. It's the big weekend of the Parx Millions, the Cotillion, and the Pennsylvania Derby.
Millions at the Parx. I love it, Matt. That should be their slogan. No maximum security, but we still got some nice colts running for $1 million in the Penn Derby. Great field in the Cotillion. Watch Matt and I run it down right now on Horse Center. Welcome to another edition of Horse Center, everyone. I am Brian Zipsey, and as always, I have the outstanding pleasure of being joined by my co-host to the East Coast. That's Matt Schiffman. How are you today, Matt?
I'm very good, Brian. Big weekend of racing at Parx this weekend. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, you're going to make the short trip down to Pennsylvania. Hey, sir?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. And of course, it's a very nice card, chock full of stakes races. But we're going to talk about the $2 million races today on Horse Center. Matt, let's start with the Penn Derby. We thought it was going to be a field of 7 led by probably the division leader, Maximum Security, the winner of the Kentucky Derby before he was disqualified. He did win the Florida Derby and the Haskell as well. But unfortunately, Maximum Security had to be scratched out of the Pennsylvania Derby.
Yeah, as always, an unexpected little bout of colic has put Maximum Security on the shelf. Fortunately, they recognized the problem. They were able to rush him off to one of the really good equine clinics in New Jersey, and they got the colic to clear up without as much trouble as it can be. No surgery was required. They got the intestines to straighten out, and Maximum Security is back in his stall at Monmouth Park.
That's right. That's the important thing, that Maximum Security came out of the little issue very well. And of course, Matt and I here on Horse Center wish the Haskell and Florida Derby winner well. Full recovery, and we hope to see him back soon. But now to the race, Matt. We're left with a field of 6. I think there are several good horses in here, including a Classic winner. But on the morning line, I see that the favorite is Improbable, Matt. And if my memory serves me, Improbable was the favorite in the Kentucky Derby, finished out of the money. Not a bad result, but out of the money. Then in the Preakness, he was the favorite, and I don't think that was as good a race as the Kentucky Derby by any means. Again, out of the money as the favorite. Now he comes back as the Pennsylvania Derby favorite, morning line at least, off a very nice return win.
Yeah, and in total, he has 1 victory this year as a 3-year-old. And you mentioned that victory happened last month at Del Mar in the Shared Belief. It was a field of 4, an undistinguished field of 4, but it was important for Improbable to handle that field easily and get back in the winner's circle, which he did. That's not to say that Improbable hasn't had some good performances this year. You mentioned the Kentucky Derby, 5th in there. I think that was a really fine effort. And he had a couple of really nice second places at Oakland on the Derby Trail. One of them was to Omaha Beach, who, I don't know, I still have a feeling may have been the best 3-year-old this year. Hopefully we'll get to see him.
Yeah, Improbable, small field in the Shared Belief. It was a nice return race. And there is something to be said for a horse who gets a little bit of time off after a tough Triple Crown prep schedule, and then running in the first 2 legs. Perhaps those first 2 legs were a little farther than the son of City Zip is best at. That would be an excuse. He had a break. And you say indistinguished, that's fair enough, but we don't really know. I mean, Lieutenant Dan was a distant third that race. He's run some fast races out there. We don't really know about King Jack. We're going to learn more about King Jack before the Pennsylvania Derby. King Jack was the horse who ran a pretty good second to Improbable last time in the Shared Belief. King Jack is a lightly raced Californian who will be coming east to face some good sprinters in the Gallant Bob on the Pennsylvania Derby undercard. So we'll know more about the quality of the shared belief by how King Jack does in the Gallant Bob. Yeah, I'm a little surprised he's the morning line favorite. You know, I think we have the Bob Baffert factor. I think that's the real reason he's the favorite. Baffert comes east and wins so many big races. But I don't know if Improbables earned the right to be favored in this race. Certainly one of the best 2-year-olds, but like you say, only that one win. Also in the field is Mr. Money, and this is a horse I've been high on for a while. I think you have too, for the most part, Matt. I think he's the horse that deserves to be the morning line favorite. He's won 4 graded stakes in impressive fashions running now, and now he gets a grade 1 shot in the Pennsylvania Derby.
Yes, Brian, I agree with that, and certainly, you know, back to Improbable and Baffert again, just for a second. You know, Baffert's looking for his 4th Pennsylvania victory, and they all have come fairly recently. He won the last 2 Pennsylvania Derbies with West Coast and McKinsey. So all told, that's the reason why. But I, with you, and I think I'll be a little blunter. I certainly don't want to bet Improbable in here as the favorite. But back to Mr. Money, 4 grade 3 victories in a row, and you know, if Maximum Security had been in the field, things would be a whole lot different, in my opinion. But with Maximum Security out, I think Mr. Money is the horse to beat in here. I think with this group, he has a really good chance of making that step up to grade 1 and getting that first grade 1 victory. You know, we have to keep in mind that those were all grade 3s, but and you alluded to it, the way he has won all of those races, Brian, each one has been an impressive victory by wide margins, 3 of them by more than 6 lengths, the other one by almost 3 lengths. He's showing that he should be able to win races above the grade 3 level.
Yeah, Matt, and you know, we saw this horse before he ever ran last year at Churchill Downs, and people were high on the Son of Golden Sun. Such a efficient, smooth mover on the racetrack. He's put it all together, and you know, with the lack of real consistency in the biggest races, the Triple Crown races and such, the Grade 1 races, you know, I think Mr. Money's races have been as good as anybody in this crop. I thought he was going to win the Pennsylvania Derby with Maximum Security in the field. You and I may differ on that note, but I certainly like him best in here. He was proven at 9 furlongs last time in the West Virginia Derby. Pat Day Mile, Matt Winn, Indiana Derby, West Virginia Derby. I think all of them are good enough to win this race. I think he's that good. He's looked great in the mornings at Churchill Downs. Brett Calhoun trains him. I think Mr. Money's going to Pennsylvania Derby to get his grade 1 win. I like him best here. I think he should be the favorite. I don't think he's going to have much odds, but maybe the morning line maker's right. Maybe Improbable with the Baffert factor gets favored. Now, we haven't mentioned the Classic winner yet, Matt, and that's a little disconcerting to me as far as the class of the race. Certainly in the Preakness, the middle of May, War of Will was a better horse than Improbable was.
Yeah, I agree, Brian. And if you're a fan of War of Will, you're going to get some good value in here. Remember that this is the winner of the Preakness, and then he came back and ran in the Belmont Stakes and the Jim Dandy after, you know, an eventful and pretty long campaign in the spring and the early summer, and was ready to get a rest in there, which he has gotten, and he has been training very strongly, which is the way of War of Will. He's a very good morning horse and always looks strong in the morning. So I think he's probably going to be coming into this race rested up and maybe ready to fire a big one. And like I said, if you like the horse, you're going to get some decent odds.
Yeah, and War of Will has been running in big races all year, but he did get a little bit of break after the Jim Dandy. Now, the Belmont, 1.5 miles, I don't really think 1.5 miles is his best distance, so I wasn't shocked that he faded a little bit in the Belmont. The Jim Dandy, I don't know if the race setup really helped him. He was really on, kind of battling and taking over the lead early. I would like to see him stalking. I'm not sure what's going to happen here, but I don't think he's on the lead in here. I think he's a better horse. So maybe just a little bit of break. Like you said, he is also working very well for trainer Mark Casse. And the ability maybe to run more to his best running style at a distance. Again, that makes sense. The Jim Dandy, same distance. But like I said, I don't know the running style did him well. One other horse I certainly want to talk about is the son of Hardspun, Spun to Run. He was third in the Haskell, and then he was a game winner over the racetrack. That matters. He's got a win over this Parx racetrack, or more than one. Spun to Run, is he ready to step up into this class? Now in the Haskell, he was third, Matt, but it was a little far back behind Maximum Security and Mucho Gusto that day.
Yes, yeah, it was. He was well behind those two who were battling it out to the wire, but he did beat some decent horses in the rest of the field in there. And like you said, this is his home field, and it was a good win in the Smarty Jones. So sure, stranger things have happened in the race, but I don't think he's going to get the win spot. Could he get in and hit the board? Yeah, I think there's a better chance of that.
Okay, fair enough. It'll be interesting to see how good Spun to Run is. To me, he's an interesting horse that is improving as sons and daughters of Hardspun tend to do. Who else, Matt? We got the real rallier in the field is Math Wizard. Good second in the Ohio Derby, a decent race in the Indiana Derby. Last time, not quite as good. He's run some good races in here. He actually ran against Maximum Security back in a claiming race, the beginning of the year, I believe it was. If the table sets for Math Wizard, he doesn't look like he's moving the right way, though.
No, that's for sure. And the bottom line with Math Wizard is that he hasn't won a race since back in January when the current ownership claimed him for $25,000 at Gulfstream Park. Yeah.
Being the one rallier, you always want to give a look, but I just don't think he's good enough for this bunch. And not good enough for this bunch certainly qualifies as a fair statement for Shanghai Superfly, who would seem to be 100 to 1 shot at best and severely overmatched. Now, one thing I do want to talk about is the pace, because it's an intriguing pace where you look at Improbable, Mr. Money, Spun to Run, War of Will, all kinds of horses who have been on the lead but are more comfortable, it looks like, stalking. The comments and the race last time and the shared belief maybe lead me to believe that maybe Improbable is the early leader with the other three close behind. What do you see happening early in this Penn Derby?
Yeah, I feel that same way, and I felt that kind of way when Maximum Security was in the field, wondering what was going to happen in the race. At that point, I felt like it was going to be Maximum Security that went to the lead, and he was going to be tough to beat in there. So I kind of feel that's what should happen with Improbable in there. I think their best shot is going to be to go to the lead and make these others try and catch him. Mike Smith is coming east and getting on board for the Pennsylvania Derby, where of course he's had great luck teaming up with Mr. Baffert.
Yeah, and another reason why Improbable very well may be the favorite in the Pennsylvania Derby. All right, so that's what I see. I see Improbable the most likely to take the lead, but any of the four favorites, I think it's possible they could go out to the lead. I think War of Will's better a little bit off the lead. I think it makes sense for Spun to Run not to try to battle for that early lead, and I think Mr. Money is very comfortable on the outside stalking.
Yep.
I think Mr. Money is the best of the stalkers, Matt, and unequivocally here, Mr. Money is my top pick in the Pennsylvania Derby.
Yes, Brian. At this point in the field, I am going to have Mr. Money on top two, and maybe see what the Mr. Money War of Will exacta pays.
There you go. It's a shame we didn't see Maximum Security in here, but again, we wish him the best of health moving forward, Matt. Now let's go to the other $1 million race on this Parx card, the Pennsylvania Derby. Is race 11, $1 million, 9 furlongs. The race before is also $1 million. This one's at 1 1/16 miles. This one for the Distaff set. We got 3-year-old fillies, and we got most or many of the best 3-year-old dirt fillies in the country in here, Matt. We got a full field of 11. The favorite, I think rightfully so, is the undefeated Guarana.
Yeah, Brian, 11 of them. And I kind of feel a little bit the same way about the cotillion that you were talking about with the Pennsylvania Derby, where a whole lot of these horses and good horses have at times in their career won races on the lead. And a whole bunch of them have had their best race while running on the lead. So again, I'm really curious about how this race is going to play out. And of course, we've got Serengeti Empress, speaking of running on the lead, who drew the rail for the third straight time. And we know Serengeti Empress does her best running when she's on the lead, got the rail. We know she's going to go to the lead. But are any of the these other horses going to challenge Serengeti Empress in the early going?
Yeah, well, first off, I want to look back at the Acorn. That was, of course, Guarana's coming out party. Now, Guarana's 3 for 3 at 3 different tracks. I think Guarana can really put her name in for a 3-year-old filly championship with a win here in the Cotillion, because combined with the Acorn and then the Coaching Club American Oaks, that would be 3 consecutive wins, even though it would only be her 4th lifetime start. In the Acorn, Serengeti Empress really was pressured on a fast early pace, and she was no match for Guarana that day. A mile at Belmont was 1 turn. But Serengeti Empress, of course, has been so good. She's run so many good races, saved that 1 race at Fairgrounds this year, that you have to respect her. And on the lead, I don't think she'll run as fast as she did or be pressured as hard as she was in the Acorn, coming off that tough race in the Test. Another tough. She's had some tough races lately, man. Serengeti Empress has to be on the lead from the rail. But then you got horses like Guarana who can stay close. But maybe more than that, you got horses like Jaywalk. And Jaywalk, of course, was last year's 2-year-old filly champion. She'll be on the other end of the starting gate, by the way, Matt, out in the post 11, 6-1 on the morning line. Clearly, she isn't as dominant a horse as she was at 2. She showed signs of being back with a big win in the Delaware Oaks, but then she was taken down in the Monmouth Oaks as a heavy favorite, not taken down by the stewards, but taken down by a horse in the race, Horologist. First question, does Jaywalk go after Serengeti Empress and turn the heat on early?
Well, I think the post position that you mentioned, Brian, maybe is the factor that is going to cause Jaywalk, because she has done her best running out on the lead, as you mentioned, in the Delaware Oaks and then in the Monmouth Oaks also. It would sure seem like they're going to have to send her out of the gate to try and get her as close to the lead as possible. And that may mean that she finds herself right up there with Serengeti Empress.
Yeah, and I also think it's interesting, Matt, you make a good point coming from that far out. I think that jockey has to go a little bit on Jaywalk. There's also the factor that there's several horses with a fair amount of speed out there, like Guarana, like Sweet Sammy D, a long shot, like Bellafina. What do you think of Bellafina? Certainly she's been the best filly of her crop out in California, but the Kentucky Oaks and the Test don't give a lot of confidence outside of her friendly confines of Southern California.
Yeah, Brian, that's for sure. So a little bit of I'm not sure what to expect from Bellafina. Of course, her win in the Santa Anita Oaks was spectacular, and then has not been quite so much since then. Owner Kaleem Shah, of course, likes Parx, had a big win in the Pennsylvania Derby in 2014 with Bayern. But again, yeah, Brian, I don't know what to expect.
Yeah, and Bellafina and Jaywalk. If you like Bellafina, she's going to have some odds. It's just I agree with Matt. It's a little hard to know what she's going to do. I wonder how much early pace she'll be. So Garana is the favorite on the morning line. Serengeti Empress certainly the second choice. Bellafina, Jaywalk at 6-1. That puts Street Band, the winner of the Fairground Oaks and the Indiana Oaks, ridden by Sophie Doyle, as the fifth choice on the morning line. Now, she doesn't necessarily like to come from way back, but on the other hand, with all this pace in here, Serengeti Empress and then all her obvious chasers, Street Band might be able to come from the middle of the pack. 8-1 on the morning line intrigues me a whole lot.
Yeah, I agree, Brian. And you remember when we were doing the show before the Alabama, I liked Street Band a lot in that race. And, in there, she was bottled up in tight, kind of close towards the rail, and was very eager in the early going with no place to run, was up on the heels of some other horses and had to really, really be restrained in there. And eventually got an opening, and I think at the top of the stretch may have even gotten her head in front for a while, but I felt like she expended a lot of energy in there fighting with the jockey, and I would really like to see Sophie Doyle get Street Band a little clear, undercover, and get her to relax a little bit more in the early going and save that energy and make a big run in there. So I still like Street Band, but I want to get a little bit of a kinder trip.
Yeah. I thought the Alabama was a really good performance, frankly. Yeah. Mile and a quarter, Dunbar Road, you know how highly, of course, she was my pick in the Alabama, and how highly I think of her. Point of Honor just past Street Band late, and Point of Honor, I think, is more of a mile and a quarter horse. So I thought Street Band, for all the reasons you mentioned, and the fact that she was way ahead of a bunch of good fillies behind, when she finished third in the Alabama. I think that was a really good performance. As was the Indiana Oaks. That was impressive. Certainly a little bit lower level than the Alabama or the Cotillion, but impressive as she was in the Fairground Oaks. And then the Kentucky Oaks, she really did not have a fair shake in that race. As there was a lot of traffic for her that day. So behind Serengeti Empress. So Street Band, interesting at 8-1. Geltrin, she's running a lot of big races. She's won a couple stakes. Last time she aired in the Catherine Sophia, and that wasn't a real weak prep. There were some decent fillies in the prep for the Cotillion, and Geltrin romped, but she hasn't been able to beat the best before. Is that race over the track enough to think that she's worth a play in here?
Well, it certainly is a positive factor in there, but I agree that she hasn't been able to put it all together against this kind of quality field, and she's another one in there that I'm curious to see what's she going to do on the track. Is she going to go up more towards the front or lay back in there? I think it's still a little bit of a tough spot.
Yeah, well, like Street Band, I would expect Geltrin to be farther off the pace on Saturday. But yeah, of the two, I guess the morning line agrees. Street Band's 8-1, Geltrin 12-1. I certainly like Street Band better than the Catherine Sophia winner. One other filly I want to mention for sure, Matt, because I see that J next to her name, the New Jersey bred horologist. Mazza trains this filly, and the Monmouth Oaks was supposed to be a walk in the park for Jaywalk, no pun intended, and it was anything but. As horologist came up the rail, hooked her, and was better than Jaywalk late in that Monmouth Oaks. She's 4 for 4, I believe, over the Monmouth Park dirt course, Matt. Can we say that horologist has gotten this good and she can take her game outside of Monmouth? The Monmouth Oaks winner could make some real noise in the Cotillion?
Well, for sure, and it's great to see veteran trainer John Mazza, a trainer you and I, so have seen putting horses out at Monmouth Park for years and years and years. It is really good to see him get a quality horse, and it's not only just 4 wins on the Monmouth course, it's 4 wins in a row for Horologist. And I know after the race he talked about that this is a horse that's putting all the pieces together and figuring things out. But yeah, a whole different kind of surface at Parks than at Monmouth Park, and certainly Horologist has never faced a quality field of this size with 11 horses before. So tough spot. Certainly don't see her in the winner's circle afterwards, but hey, I don't know, maybe getting a piece.
Yeah, well, at any rate, Matt, we have to celebrate the New Jersey bred, and Horologist has become a very nice New Jersey bred, daughter of Gemologist, pretty good young sire as well, and that was a game win in the Monmouth Oaks. But I think you hit the nail on the head. That day she had to beat 1 horse, Jaywalk. This time she has to beat 6 or 7, which seems to be a pretty hefty task. Price on the morning line is right, though, 15-1 if you want to take a shot. There's a bunch of others in here. Some may show speed, but I think they really all are long shots at best. Matt, when it boils down to it, this is a very nice field, one of the best 3-year-old filly races of the year. 11 fillies going a mile and 16th. Serengeti Empress flashing her speed on the rail. Guarana putting her unbeaten record to the test. Maybe getting a real jump on the Eclipse Award. Serengeti Empress, on the other hand, could also make a real move for the Eclipse Award as well. Who's your pick in this tough race?
Lock it up. Lock up the exacta, Brian. Guarana over Street Band.
Guarana over Street Band. So you got the favorite over an 8-1 shot, Matt. That's good. That's good picking, I think, sir, because I think you got 2 fillies that can sit just off the pace and make a run. Serengeti Empress, I could see her wiring this race. I just think it's going to be hard for a variety of reasons. Jaywalk and others making life tough again for her. She's had a lot of tough races, and we're asking her to do it again. If she gets away like she did in the Kentucky Oaks, sayonara. I don't think they catch her, but I just don't see it happening. Guarana, the obvious horse, but this is her toughest race yet. I don't want her at somewhere between even money and 9-5. Street Band for me. I'd love to see her as the 5th choice. 8-1 sounds delicious. I'm going to pick the upset with Street Band in the cotillion. Matt, I already mentioned King Jack in the Gallant Bob. I think that's an interesting race. It's 3-year-old sprinters. Coal Front makes a return. His last race wasn't really good, but he sure did some good things earlier in the year in the Parks Dirt Mile. Speaking of Dirt Miles, we got the Kelso at Belmont, and we still don't know for sure if Catholic Boy is going to be in the field.
Well, if Catholic Boy isn't going to run in the Kelso, I don't know what they're looking ahead to doing. It's time for that Jonathan Thomas horse to get out on the racetrack and show us what he's got.
Amen. A lot of people would like to see it happen on turf, but at this point, I want to see Catholic Boy run. He's only had the 2 races, the Dixie win and the Suburban second. Yeah, by all means, let's see Catholic Boy run, and hopefully he can do well enough to be in with a shot for the Breeders' Cup, which is not too far away, sir, as we inch ever closer to that first weekend in November. Matt, Penn Derby, Cotillion, you're going to be there. I hope you have a great time. I hope you win big. I hope you get to say hello to some new Horse Center fans. But first off, let's get a parting shot from you today.
Yeah, absolutely. And aside from hopefully cashing some tickets, I look forward to seeing any of you Horse Center fans. So please say hello if you see me. And of course, as always, I want to thank our producer, Brett Workman, for putting together the show.
Absolutely. Thanks to Brett. Thanks for watching every week, folks. We sure do appreciate it. We sure do appreciate all the kind comments we get both on the track and online. Thank you. If you haven't yet, please do subscribe to our YouTube channel here on Horse Racing Nation. Also, thanks to our sponsor, the best contest site out there. That's Derby Wars, Matt. Hey, Dennis's moment. Dennis's moment as a Kentucky Derby horse. For real or not for real?
Well, Brian, it's hard at this point to to expect the winner of the Iroquois to end up winning the Kentucky Derby, but hey, he looked absolutely terrific, backed up that 19-length victory with an impressive win, coming from off the pace a little bit, so changed things up and drew off and eased up, hitting the wire. Dale Romans, rightfully so, is excited.
Yeah, and whether it be the Kentucky Derby next year or at the very least the Breeders' Cup Juvenile in 6.5 weeks or so, Dennis's Moment, I say he's for real. So, folks, as we trail off, let's watch Dennis's Moment winning the Iroquois last Saturday at Churchill Downs.
They're in the gate. And they're off. Automate with a slow start, uneventful beginning for Dennis's Moment. Juggernaut racing for the lead. Juggernaut keyed up. Leads the way into the clubhouse turn. Levda's on the outside, running in second. Zermid comes away racing in third. Dennis's Moment is racing in fourth on the outside. Comes away 3.5 lengths off the lead with 7 furlongs to go. Then it's Rowdy Yates running along in fifth. Scabbard over to the inside to be sixth. Flute Maker is seventh by 7 or 8 lengths. January 1, Automate, and at the back is Let Me Know. 15 lengths from top to bottom, and the pace is fast. 23-1 for that opening quarter mile. So it is Juggernaut moving down the backstretch with 5 furlongs to go. Still keyed up and on the lead. Leads by 1.5 lengths. Levda's tracking the pace, running along in second. Zermid is covered up inside, racing third. Dennis's Moment, untroubled at this point, fourth and on the outside. Rowdy Yates getting closer. Scabbard in very tight toward the inside. Scabbard racing up on the heels of Zermid. Had to steady briefly there as they round the far turn. Farther back, it's Flute Maker. The rest have to get going with 3 furlongs to go. Levda coming after Juggernaut, and looming to the outside is Dennis's Moment with a 3-wide bid round the far turn. Up to challenge for the top spot now. Farther back, it's Rowdy Yates racing in fourth. Flute Maker's underway. Scabbard was shuffled back in Zermid. They're off the turn. Dennis's Moment strikes the lead right at the top of the stretch and builds a 2-length lead. Now a 3-length lead for the final furlong. Levda's battling on, but is back into second. Scabbard trying to come on late. Rowdy Yates is fourth. There's 1 furlong to go. Dennis's Moment with a 5-length lead. Scabbard with clear sailing up into second, but Dennis's Moment kicks off the road to the Kentucky Derby in a big way. He barely moved a muscle, winning by 2. Scabbard was second. Farther back, it's tight for third.